Hey, John, how are you?
Good.
Good. I'm actually cell service here really isn't that bad, but I'm in the room right now. I'm trying to get into this meeting, and it's asking me for a passcode, and I don't see where that is.
Into this meeting?
Yeah. Sorry, I'm trying to get in on my laptop into this meeting.
Oh.
Oh, never mind. It's right on the invitation. That's silly.
Toolbox.
Did it let you in?
It did, yeah. 148. Yeah, thanks. I had to go around the other way, but
all right. And then were you going to be able to play sound through your presentation?
I think so. I'm about to find out right here. So let's see what we can do. Thanks, Scott.
You need that. It's not off grab it, get out of the way.
This meeting's okay. Got it. All right, John, say something.
Can you hear me okay?
Okay, hang on. It's gonna be that feedback issue. Let me see those. Are these easy to flip on and flip off?
Yeah, just at the bottom. So one is on and
one is on and one. Oh, no, this one's off. Is that off? Off now? Okay. Oh. Hang on, let me log out of my phone. That's the problem. Oh. Okay, John, go ahead and say something.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you loud and clear and no echo.
Okay, that works.
Oh, great. Is it going over the PA then?
It is going over the PA. Okay, hang on a second. Let's see what happens when I use a mic. Can you hear me now? Go ahead and say something, John.
All right, let me try now.
Say something again.
Okay, can you hear me now?
There's no echo. That's great.
Nice.
Do you want the audience to hear him?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. We're gonna have other people who are online, so that'll be perfect.
Right. My anxiety's calming down.
No, mine too. Thank you.
We're gonna have a working system.
That's why we wanted to get here an hour early, just to make sure. But yeah, thank you so much.
Okay, and then I found these backup batteries in case yeah, I've used these for a while, so I'm hopeful that we've got some battery on them, but I'll have a backup in case.
They look like
Yeah,
they're
they can
rechargeable.
help. And you can,
Awesome. Okay. So
so I'm gonna stay in here. And
okay, you'll be in here. Okay.
Yeah.
I was gonna say after the meeting, if you don't come grab them, I'll just
Yeah.
leave them right here. Okay. So John, remind me, are you going to be flipping through the slides or are we?
I think it'd be best if you did, just so you can control it, so you don't have to tell me every time to flip it. So I think what I'll do is I'll make you a co-host so that you can share your screen, project this meeting, and then I'll share my screen when we get to the poll.
Okay. Hang on, John, just a second. We don't have the overhead display quite ready yet.
Hey, John, do you want to make me a co-host as well, just in case something crashes on your end?
Oh, yes, definitely.
Turn it off. This is our backup plan. In case something goes wrong with the overhead. Change brightness, okay. Display, extend, let's duplicate.
There you go.
How do I get back? There we go. Okay. Okay, I think we're cooking with gas right now.
Great.
We can get the lights off back here.
Or should we just shut the curtains?
I'm not sure what would be best. I can turn them on,
Shut the
but
shut the
the
curtain.
curtains probably would be good to
Oh,
be shut.
yeah, that won't work.
Yeah, because the projector, I think, will do that.
But if I shut the curtains just part way,
Oh, yeah.
do you want
That
that?
might be better. Probably look a little more professional.
Like to there?
A little more.
Actually, this-
Wait, is that, no, that's maybe a little, maybe you can pull it out. just a bit.
the lights back there were turned off. Okay, okay. So what we're seeing is the lights.
And now he's going
We had the lights off last week.
Yep, great.
Well, this, but they're connected together, right?
Any way to turn the first bank of lights off here?
What's that?
Any way to turn the first bank off?
Um,
Hey, Mike, how are you?
That'll be over here.
Okay.
They are, but it's still. And. I honestly think, I mean, they're fairly strict in what it is.
So are these is this a survey? Or is it-
These are this is the form for them to take the survey if they don't have a smartphone.
Okay. Perfect.
Then
That's-
this is the comment form. So this gives this is a description of the process, and then this is for everybody to write down comments if they want. So these we give at these two we give when they arrive.
Okay.
And
You
then
want
this
that out on the
one,
table?
yeah, and then this one is distributed. We start filling it in before they see the presentation.
Yes, and so they'll have that.
Yeah.
And then is this at the
That may not
Check
table?
the kind of table, and they can just kind of use as many of those
I
as they
don't
want.
think we're gonna be able to get those off.
Oh, I think this will work just fine.
Okay, let me see if we can advance the slide one or two. Hey, John, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, will you just advance to the first few slides in the slideshow?
What's that?
Will you advance through the first through the first few slides in the slideshow?
Yeah.
I mean, they have nice road.
Do you want me to share my screen then?
Oh, you know what? Yeah, I'm gonna be doing it on my side. I'm sorry. Hang on.
Yeah.
And there is gonna be sound needed on some of your PowerPoint.
No, just what you're hearing now with
Okay,
these guys.
just through
Yep.
him.
Yep.
So I wanted to make sure that was gonna play, if you had any videos embedded. So nothing is coming up on YouTube that we would
No.
potentially block.
Yeah,
okay?
no, just this here. Okay, let's see.
And those guys talk about the fact that we didn't know these going to stay report. Because, and I have some of the decision making because, some people claim they own, yet there's nobody shoots them.
And it honestly
There's
is
all
like
like
that.
that, it's become an issue. Yes. And, most people.
Clear.
How do you feel about that, John? Well, they did, but they won't let you pull that one. Or if you could.
I think I'll leave that it'll be
What was that?
We'll be able to do that.
Not the lights. I'm not.
Yeah, so.
The light.
They made a deal to take, we were, something we were one, and just trying to figure it out. And there we are, actively digging the hole and preparing that today to do that. And so that would be sewer discharge, those going into the little lake, for storage for use in their irrigation. Well, if that water is owned by the city, then should go do that. That's what we were always told. They're the one. I know. And they actually, it's allowed to relations, city.
Charlie, are you expecting someone named Tracy to enter the meeting right now?
Where do we talk to John?
So from the owner.
What was that, John?
Are you expecting someone named Tracy to attend the meeting right now, or should I hold off to let them in the meeting?
Hold off. I'm not expecting anyone online right now.
Okay, just wanted to make sure.
Okay, are you good for now? Our office lot, if anyone has restroom needs, they're able to use. That is for, I don't think that I'm possible.
We'll let people out. All right, folks, we're gonna get started. When we gather together like this, sometimes I remember some of the words of Fezzik from The Princess Bride when he says to the men in black, "Why are you wearing a mask? Were you burned by acid or something?" And he says, "No, I just think they'll be terribly popular in the future." So if you're wearing one, great. If you're not, great. Welcome. Thank you. So we're here tonight to talk about the Western Weber Planning Area General Plan. And we'll go through a few slides to show what the planning area is. But before we do so, just want to introduce the crew. So we've got Mark Vlasic from Landmark Design, and online we've got John Locke and Lisa Benson, also from Landmark. They're the consultants that the county has selected to help the county, assist the county through this. Go ahead. To assist the county through this process. And then your planning division is also taking a lead role in this. So I'm Charlie Ewert. I work for the Weber County Planning Division. And you've got various ones of us around the room. I'm just gonna go around the room. We got Gary Myers from the Engineering Division back here. His hand was up very briefly. Rick Grover, Director of the Planning Division. Steve Burton, I forgot your name, Steve, sorry. Principal Planner in the Planning Division. And Brad, last name. Cragen, sorry, in the Engineering Division. We got Blaine, and I don't know if Blaine's here on official business, but he's in our Building Division. And we've got Ashley Tolman, Engineering Division, Felix Yavarino, Planning Division. We've got June Nelson, sorry, I almost forgot your last name, June, Planning Division. We've got Scott Perks, Planning Division, Tammy Adelot behind them over there. And then we've got a few people out in the hallway also. So we didn't quite know how many to expect. And so if more people file in, we're probably going to be setting up some more chairs. So if we could do a little bit of distancing. In fact, can we get just a couple more chairs set up? Okay. To give some of our opening remarks, we've got Commissioner Jenkins, and he's got a couple of slides he's going to go through, and he's really going to set the meeting up and get the ball rolling. So Commissioner Jenkins.
Thank you. It's good to be here with all of you tonight. So Commissioner Ford and Commissioner Harvey, we've been involved with hearings to do our budget right now, and they weren't here tonight, so they apologize and asked to be excused. So it's interesting to see what's happened to West Weber in the last few years. You've gone through a vote to become a city that you turned down. The pressures that are out here are taking place as you see West Haven creep closer to you as they incorporate cities. And when you talk about pressures, in the last 10 months, we've had approach us, controlling about 3,000 acres of ground out here. So when you look at what's happening, the pressures on West Weber, and it's simply because Salt Lake's full, Davis County's full, and it's coming this way. We go over every year and buy potatoes from Bennett's Farms. And I see where Bennett's is raising potatoes in West Weber now. I said to him last year, what's happening? Oh, he said, we sold our farm over here. So farm ground's selling, and you just can't help it. People have property rights, and they have the rights to do things with their property. And we've done everything you can. There's been all kinds of zoning changes the last few years to prevent that. But I'm telling you, the pressures are on right now in West Weber. And when you start, you say, well, what other pressures? Well, we've the industrial sites west of here. Right now today, we have 8 companies that are interested in developing out there. And we have one company that started out with 78 sites across the west to view, and they're down to 2, and we're one of the 2 right here. We've looked at running sewer from Central Weber west all the way to 9350 west. There's lots happening right now, and it's active and it's all around us. So we were encouraged when the vote was whether to make a city or not, that we should go ahead and do some master planning in here. And we, as a commission, elected not to do that. We said, look, we hate to do all that, knowing that it could very well change if a city is created. So we said, we're going to wait to see what happens there. And if a city is created, then the city can do their own planning. We don't want to get in the way of that. Well, that didn't happen. And so that's the goal tonight, is we're starting the process of master planning this area. It was done in the early 2000s. It was upgraded in 2018, but it was never adopted in 2018. And I can't answer why. It just never happened. So here we are tonight to upgrade it and look at it and go through it. And you've got to decide how you want your city or future here to develop, because that's what's going to happen. And whether it's your property or the guy's property next to you, everybody has individual property rights, and they have rights today. Under today's zoning ordinances, they can come in and develop their property today. So nothing's changed that way. We're just trying to get in front of this. And I think we sent a little bit of a shockwave through the community here a couple of years ago when Dan Bach came in and wanted that property across from Country Corner rezoned commercial, and we gave it to him. We allowed him to zone that commercial, and a lot of people didn't want that. They were upset about that, and that kind of sent a shockwave across the bow out here about what's happening. And I'm just telling you, well, I'll give you another scenario. Just on the south side of the track, bordering West Haven, there's large pieces of property there, and there's some low-lying property. And so the county went in there and said, okay, if this is going to develop, how are we going to put sewer in here? So we picked 6 or 7 master lift stations and put in there and said that will sewer this whole area when the day comes. Well, today, 18, 24 months later, one of those lift stations is being built. The other lift station is in planning, and the other 4 are out there, and it's starting to take place right now. Now, West Haven, if we do nothing, they will keep marching this way, and they will end up taking West Weaver to the tracks anyway. That's in their master plan, to go to the tracks. And so you kind of got to decide what you want this to be out here and what's going to happen. We appreciate your comments. We appreciate your input. We hope it'll be orderly and kindly. We're all trying to do the best for all of you that live here and all the people in the area. A lot of people have said, well, if you really want to do the best, just don't let anything happen. Well, that's really not an option, because people have their rights and they can do what they want with their property. The only real option to stop it is to go buy it. And you are more than welcome to do that, of course. I think that's probably said enough. I've said that enough, haven't I, from there? Okay, so anyway, we've hired now some consultants to start this plan. And Gary will introduce you to them and get this started, and here we go.
Thank you, Commissioner. So Commissioner Jenkins mentioned that we haven't updated the plan since 2003. The map that you have up on the board is the plan for Western Weber County. All that yellow area that you see is planned for 1 acre development. So 1 acre development as far as the eye can see until you get to the manufacturing area. That's been in the works for the last 20 years. In fact, that's been in the works since 1958 when when zoning was first adopted for this area. You guys probably know, some of you probably know, back in 1958, the idea was you get 1 acre for your house, and then you have your farmland right next door. But mortgage companies at the time, and even now, don't really want to lend on more than 1 acre of ground. And so I think that was the point of the 1 acre development. I don't think anybody at that time would have considered wall-to-wall 1 acre zoning or 1 acre subdivisions, but it's happening, and you guys can see it in your backyards. So back in 2018 and 2019, we came out here to this building, and we ran some mapping charrettes with the public, with many of you who are in the room. We laid out maps, we gave markers, we gave comment cards, everything we could, and we said, draw what your ideal future for Western Weber is. Okay, and this is the map we came up with. Now I'll walk you through that in just a minute, how that map was created and what the feedback was. But before I do so, I'm going to turn the time over here to Mark to go through a couple slides.
Okay, thanks, Charlie. And again, Mark Vlasic with Landmark Design. We're planners from Salt Lake City, and we actually did the 2003 plan. We did it 20 years ago, so it's great to be back here and being involved in this project again. Yeah, so I think we're calling this project Western Weber Futures, and it's really what it is as it was mentioned, it's an update to your general plan, which has been nearly 20 years since it was prepared, and there's been obviously a lot of changes going on. The planning area, you can see it there. It's in the large yellow area on the left-hand side of the aerial photo. But we just wanted to point out as part of this, we're also going to be doing some planning for Uinta Highlands and some of the other unincorporated islands in the area. Yeah, and so you can see it down in the right-hand corner with the star there. But the primary focus is really to take a look at this area and figure out a path forward. As was mentioned, there was this planning process that happened a couple of years ago, and there were 4 meetings, workshops, other meetings, and what came out of that was sort of the beginnings of a vision for the project, and that's where we're starting this evening, or where we've been working for the last several months. I think our key question is the vision that was starting to form at that time still valid? And if not, how are we going to have to modify it or change it? And then we were hired about 6 months ago, a little bit longer, and we've been doing online outreach. And tonight we wanted to come out to you and get your input. So thank you again for coming. Oh, okay. Okay, so what we're doing tonight is we're going to present an overview of what was contained in the previous planning effort so that everybody has equal access to sort of what was previously proposed, and that we can get your feedback on how you feel about it. We're also going to give some background information about planning and about some of the topics that have come up, questions that have come up from the public, and give you sort of an idea of what we've been hearing for the last several months. And then we're going to be getting your live feedback. We're just to give you fair warning, we have opportunity for you to provide that by filling in forms, but if you do have a smartphone, if you could have it ready, because we're going to have live polling here using your smartphones. And I think it'll be a pretty interesting experience here this evening. We're excited to try it out. And then at the end of the meeting, we just want to hear from you and get all your comments down. We've given you forms here this evening. You can fill those out. You can visit our project website, has the address there. You can leave, you can call any of us. You can email us. Oh, that's much better. Thanks. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Charlie.
No worries, thanks. Hey, John, it sounds like we might have a few people online who have their mics unmuted. If I could remind everyone online, just so the folks in the room know, we do have this being broadcasted over Zoom. Everyone online, if you could mute your mic so we don't get any feedback here. Thank you. Okay. Can you guys hear me okay? Okay, good. So just a run through of what we did in 2018, just prior to the launch of the incorporation process. We came here, like I said, we laid out paper maps, we gave markers, and we asked people to go to town, just draw their ideal Western Weber. In doing so, we collected all the maps, we brought them back and we digitized them, okay? After digitizing the maps, we brought them back out to the public in a open house meeting. Everyone was invited to review the maps. We gave little stickers. The red stickers means I hate it. Green stickers means I love it. We had quite a bit of red. We had quite a bit of green. And one of the things to point out here is that it doesn't seem to be one uniform opinion across the board of all the different details in the plan. And so we do the best we can to try and capture what the majority are saying to present it to the county commission as what the general consensus was. So we started with a land use map. And when we asked people where growth should go, they said nowhere. That was easy to draw. So all that green area up there is shown as no growth anywhere except for what is currently allocated. That's one density right, that's one development right per acre, except for along the sewer trunk lines. And what we heard from people was, you know, it's a little bit easier when you've got access to sewer, you got access to infrastructure, it's a little bit easier to get some development in there, and maybe a little bit here and there isn't a big deal because our kids need somewhere to go. The red blotches that you see, that was commercial. One thing that we did hear a lot of is let's limit commercial as much as we can. We don't need a lot of commercial out here, which given the existing rooftops, you can't support a lot of commercial out here. And so those two things go very well together. The big kind of chunk in the middle, that's where we are right now. It's 4700 and 12th Street, which already shows that on the map, on the future land use map of your existing plan, okay? The red blob down at the bottom, that's potentially where 2550 will intersect with West Weaver Corridor. And then the big red blob out on the west, that's way out on 8300 West. And that was intended to be a buffer, buffering residential, 1 acre residential from heavy manufacturing that you can see over there. And they're nice round circles. There's no intention that we would ask anyone to make nice round commercial areas. Nor is there any intention of asking anyone to go out and create a commercial area ahead of the market, okay? So when we look at these commercial areas and what they could be in the future, we're talking way in the future. We need rooftops before you can get services, okay? Actually, you just went through all those points. Okay, then we had a transportation map that came out of the results. And the transportation map actually spoke pretty well to the land use map. One of the things that you see on there is a big swing of West Weaver Corridor going all the way out to 8300. That's not where West Weaver Corridor is currently planned. West Weaver Corridor is probably closer to 6200 West-ish. Something I didn't know at that time, and I'm sure a number of you don't know, in fact, most of you probably don't know, that West Weaver Corridor is not planned to be a freeway like you see in Davis County. West Weaver Corridor is planned to be a 2-lane road. It's a glorified 4700 West is what it is. And you're not going to see West Weaver Corridor until 4700 West is full, essentially. We did have a good conversation because one of the outcomes of this process was, let's see if we can convince UDOT to move West Weaver Corridor further west to 8300. And that makes a lot of sense for some reasons and not a lot of sense for other reasons. It makes a lot of sense because we have that big purple area, big manufacturing area out west. And if the county wants to get a piece of the inland port pie and the economic reasoning behind that, it makes sense to have a direct route straight out of the manufacturing area, straight down to I-15. But it doesn't make sense to UDOT because UDOT isn't looking at what's happening in that manufacturing area 10, 15, 20 years from now. They're looking at what's happening out there now. And right now there's barely houses, let alone commercial ventures. Now we do have a ton of truck traffic on 12th Street. It still doesn't reach the threshold that UDOT would need to put a belt route, a 2-lane belt route out there, okay? And so in talking to UDOT about, can we move that west? They said, you know, it's gonna take an arm and a leg to move that west. They studied the corridor that it's on right now. It was found to be the best corridor, except for some of the environmental folks think it needs to be even closer to Ogden, not further. So if anything, it'll probably move eastward if it moves anywhere. Okay, but we did have some other outcomes. We know that the roads that exist today are most likely to be the roads that are going to be community collector streets. Okay, they're most likely to be the streets that are going to be widened because of the growth that is happening. And again, that growth is just right now is only planned to be 1 dwelling unit to the acre, according to the plan that came out of this process here. Oh, and one of the things was focus on the street grid. We already have a great street grid. In fact, a street grid it's kind of interesting. In my profession, in the planning profession, Utah is an anomaly because of the street grid. And the street grid, it actually came out of a religious birth. It came out of the Plat of Zion, and it's actually known across the country by planners as one of the best community planning tools because it creates those blocks that create interconnectivity so that neighborhoods can be connected to neighborhoods. So, and I was happy to hear from a lot of folks that following that grid pattern is ideal. So this is the one that had the least amount of controversy, and this is the Parks and Rec plan. We heard from most people, vast majority of the people, we were in the high 75, 76%ers, saying we want access to parks, we want access to trails and recreational opportunities. After this, we had a park district that was created. That's great. And we've got some tools and mechanisms to get access to parks and recreation, okay?
And he has to come up and click it, so it changes that.
So when you combine all those together, this is the map you get. I'm going to come back to this map several times, and we're going to repeat a few things several times because not every concept that we're going to be going over is immediately graspable. I mean, if I didn't sit behind a desk for as long as I did, and if I hadn't been in the field as long as I have been, it'd be hard for me to follow. And so, please, we'll kind of go back and forth to some of these topics. Once the meeting is over, we'll open it for questions and comments, and we've got our information on the information cards. So if you just want to converse online, if you want to email or whatever, we're happy to have that dialogue as well. So please reach out if you have any questions. A lot of the criticism that we get when we go to anonymous online comments is you're not going to listen to us anyway, or no one's even going to respond, or why would I even try and talk to you? You already have your plan, and you're going to do whatever you want to do anyway. And that's just not the truth. And it actually kind of makes me sad to hear, because we do want to talk. Not everybody is going to be satisfied. In fact, most people won't be 100% satisfied. But hopefully, once we're done with the plan, we'll have something that everybody can at least live with, and it does actually preserve community character of the area. That's the intention. Mark?
Thank you. Can we get a staff member to help forward the slides so that we don't have to keep walking up there? Thank you. Our remote isn't working. So one thing to know about is what the population is going to be here in the future. And just taking a look at your building trends, this is up through 2018 when the study was done. Your growth rate based on that was 7.1% a year. That's extremely high. And so previously, the estimates that were made in the previous general plan were much lower than that. So basically, if those trends continue, and it looks like our slide has totally shifted over, somebody's needs to go shift that back. Basically, if we use the projections that were based on building trends, that you're going to have a population in the future of about almost 25,000 people from your population today that's just around 5,000. And that's in the next, by 2065. So if we go to the next slide, this is a visual of that. If you go back, on the left is showing what the projections were previously. They weren't looking, thinking that it was going to grow very fast. And this is based on what is actually happening in the ground, and it's probably happening even at a faster rate today because of the way that things are changing. So you can see that there's this large influx of population coming. If we go to the next slide, part of this project and what staff had done back in 2018 is really taking a close look at land use zoning, all the physical conditions to get a sense of what made sense to go where and have a really good understanding of the site. If we go to the next slide, that really brings up the issue of managing growth. So we have this population projection based on building permits, but then if you take a look at all of the land that's currently permitted and vested for 1 acre lot development, it accounts for about 16,000 new dwelling units. So if the assumption is if all of those developed eventually at 1 acre, that you would have that number of dwelling units, and with about 3 to 3.5 people per household, that's your average household size, that would equate to somewhere between about 50 and 60,000 people. So this is indicating that if that were to happen, that there's another doubling or more of that already large increase that we are basing off of what's actually happening today. So that's way beyond what anybody anticipated previously. And as we all know, there's just a huge change in the housing and development market the last few years, and it's likely to continue. Sure, thanks. So if we take a look if we go to the next slide, this is basically to show, and all those little dots there are those 19,000 lots. They're basically based on staff having taken a careful look and putting a dot down for every potential development. So it's just showing that that's basically how it could look in the future if everything that's vested today were to develop in 1 acre lots. So question then is why plan? And it's really this idea of being proactive or reactive. If you're proactive, you're thinking about the future and you're recognizing that change is going to come and you plan for it accordingly. When you're reactive, you're basically chasing development all the time. Development comes, there's a little here and there, and you're trying to catch up with it. It's not very efficient. Your taxes typically go up because there's less efficiency in it. And so that's why we plan, is to get ahead of what is likely to happen. And you can see the idea of proactive planning. It helps stabilize the real estate market, which we could all have a little bit of that today with what's going on. And it really helps establish your expectations for your neighborhood, your location in the future that are based on a likely reality.
In one of our public meetings, my colleague Steve actually made a presentation based on sound planning practices. At a public hearing, somebody stood up and said, I don't know who that guy was. He was clairvoyant. He seems to think he knows what's going to happen 10 years from now. And so that's why you see the crystal ball. But there is science in it. And we can see what has happened in other communities. And we just look at this out. We can see what's happening in other communities. We can see what the outcome is. And so if we get ahead of things, maybe we don't have some of the identity, I think, that's communities that we see that.
Oh, thanks. So the next slide is an interesting one in the sense, because our firm actually worked in Harriman at the time when it was still a little town. It was before they became an incorporated city. They were a rural community in the county. And at that time, as you can see, there were about just under 1,000 single-family homes. You can see them concentrated in that dark area along the drainage. And if you take a look at the next slide, 10 years later, that 1,000 increased to 21,000. Harriman, during that period and up till just recently, was one of the top 1 or 2 fastest growing communities in the United States. And so it's more, if that growth is going to come and you kind of can project it, you can mold to where it's going to go and do it in a way that you're, again, being proactive rather than letting it just kind of sprawl out there. And it's not a comment on how Harriman has done it, it's just to say that it came.
Mark and Charlie, we had a hard time hearing online what Charlie added to that. So I don't know if you're using a microphone, Charlie, when you're adding that too, but that was just hard to hear online for the rest of us.
Thanks, Lisa. We'll catch that next. So again, this is what you have today. Basically, it's starting to change, but it's basically, it's developing, but it still has a lot of open land. And if we go to the next, that's what is right now, that there's vested rights to develop. So how that is going to come is what this planning process is all about. Is it going to go on and sort of spreading out everywhere where it's that right, or we're going to try to shape it and mold it a little bit and get it in a way that it creates the community that you want it to be. And that's just a blow up of it to kind of show you those are, thought out, that each one of those are one of those dots that are in that projection. So a lot of work on staff's part to do that, actually, to sort of visualize. And we did that same thing in Harriman at the time. We showed what it would look like if everything built out. They also had 1 acre lot zoning at the time that Salt Lake County did. So I'm going to turn it back over to Charlie. We're going to talk about the do nothing plan and on.
So again, this plan is the easy plan. This is let's trash this idea of make it a general plan and let's just keep going how we're going. Okay, I want to, as we run through this, I want to revisit what Commissioner Jenkins said. 1 acre is the right that landowners have. So if you've got more than an acre of land, if you got 2 acres or greater, you have the potential of putting at least 1, if not 2 homes on that property. Okay, that's your right. Some of us have less acreages of land. I've got 6,000 square feet. I don't have anywhere near an acre. I don't live out here. But as we look at, maybe we only have an acre and we can't get another development right out of that. Some of the things that we've heard from folks online is we moved out to the country to be in the country. Stop turning this into the city. Be really nice to be able to do that. As we drive out here, I mean, again, most of us live in an incorporated area. As we drive out here, we love it out here. If we could afford to live out here, we would. Most of us, I think. I don't know about everyone, but I would. And so it's no wonder that people chose to move out here for what it is and for the identity that it currently has. So the do nothing plan is continue to let developers develop at 1 acre lots, okay? Before we dive too much into this, I want to make sure it's very clear about why the do nothing plan is continue to let development go as it has been going, okay? When the county commission sets the law or sets the rules, after the county commission has set the rules and a landowner comes in and says, I want to follow your rules and develop my land, the county commission can't say no. They've already set the rules. Okay, so any of you who have come to a planning commission meeting, who have sat there and wondered, why is the planning commission going to recommend approval or going to approve this subdivision? The answer is because it follows the rules. And you can't pull the rug out from under landowners when they're following the rules. It's just landowner rights. It's your rights. All of us have some element of those rights. Some of us just happen to own more acreage. Okay, go ahead and go to the next one. The kinds of decisions that the county commission can change in advance of an applicant or a landowner submitting an application for development are the rules. So these are the rules. This is what the zoning is out west. The lime green you see, that's 40,000 square foot lots, that's A1. The lighter green, wow, it's really hard to see. Oh, go back one.
Go too far.
One more. There you go. The lighter green you see, that's A2. It's still 40,000 square feet for residences, but if it's not a residential use, it's 2 acres. And the darker green, that's A3, that's 2 acre minimum. So that dot map that Mark showed you actually considers those minimums. It not only considers the minimums, it considers wetlands, it considers acreage unsuitable for development. So when we're talking about 16,000 dwelling units, I think that's probably an underestimation. If developers maximize how many rights they currently have, okay? So the county commission can change zoning, and that can affect how much or how little can be developed. But that's not an easy decision to make, okay? Because if you change zoning to take rights, all of a sudden you're the commission that took rights, right? And think about how the majority of people in the room voted this last voting season. I mean, it's just not a popular thing to do. You don't get reelected when you take rights. Okay, hope that's okay if I spoke for you, Commissioner Jenkins, and other commissioners. Okay, current land uses. The green area is what's in Greenbelt. The yellow area is where your residences are. Okay, so go back one slide. You can see how well our zoning is doing. 1 acre development. It's just not everywhere yet. So on your way home, when you're looking at the farmland that you pass by every day and think, I live in the country and it's a beautiful place, just realize that your boundaries end at your property line. That farmland is somebody else's, and somebody else's retirement or somebody else's children's retirement. Okay, move on to the next. Go ahead and keep going. So I'm not trying to disappoint anyone. I'm not trying to make anyone upset. I'm just trying to point out the reality, because if we don't face the reality, we're just going to go the way of every other community. It's just going to change, and we're going to be chasing the change instead of getting out ahead of the change and actually making great places, making the community of Warren, making the community of Reese, or the community of Taylor, or the community of West Weaver, or some combination of that, okay? Okay, existing conditions, just a blank map. This is the map that we brought when we came out to the public a couple of years ago and asked them to draw. Okay, go to the next slide. Let's block out where the cities are, and let's also block out where the annexation area is for some of those cities. Now, you see the red hatch here? Get up closer. This is West Haven. They actually go to here now, okay? So a bunch of that land is in the West Haven's annexation plan. And I don't think West Haven, like Commissioner Jenkins mentioned, I don't think they intend to stop. And that's no slight against West Haven. It is what it is. When a landowner wants to annex in to get the benefit of the zoning of West Haven, they're going to do that. Move to the next. Let's throw some man-made waterways on there. Go ahead and move to the next. These are the primary corridors now as they exist and one as it's planned. Okay, and that one looks like it has on-off ramps. That's back when I thought that was a freeway. It's not, it's a 2-lane road. Okay, go ahead. That's your existing residential land uses. One more. And again, that's the existing agricultural land uses. Now let's add 16,000 new dwelling units to the mix. So this is the dot map, but this is the dot map that's lined up more along the lines of what you're looking at here. Oh, sorry, manufacturing. There you go. And we're just coloring all the green yellow. Green stands for agriculture, yellow stands for residential. That's a planning standard. Most communities have the same colors. You're gonna need that many roads. We did a master transportation plan a few years back. In fact, the developer's impact fees are based on that master transportation plan, and most of these roads are on that plan. But that plan didn't consider the eventuality of 16,000 dwelling units of 1 acre apiece. That plan actually looked at 10 years from now and 20 years from now. It didn't look out to full build out. Okay. Okay, frequent questions, comments, and misconceptions. I just want to go over a few of these things. These are comments and questions that came out of the online survey. I want to let you guys know, if anything that I'm saying is really troubling to you, you're not alone. In fact, we're probably very close to the same mind because your community is great. And we would love to see it not change, but we've got some constraints. So move to the next slide. County is only improving development because it's greedily chasing revenue. That is 100% false. And the reason I can tell you it's 100% false is because single family residential under any zoning scenario does not pay for itself. If you got 1 acre development and you got one home on 1 acre and you're paying twice the taxes that I'm paying, but I've got a 6,000 square foot lot and there's 8 of us on an acre in East Ogden somewhere, there's still 8 of us paying half what you're paying for 1 acre. See how that works? There's not enough money to push the plows to asphalt the roads. In fact, we got to supplement it. And then when we supplement it, we end up just raising taxes. And the municipal services fund, which you guys pay into, that goes up. Okay, so what do you do if you don't want to have to keep paying more taxes? Well, the answer is usually retail. That's what most cities do. They chase that retail dollar. It's like speed for them. That's why cities compete with each other for Walmart or for whatever that next big industry is. Cluster development is just a workaround so the developer can develop the open space later. Mostly false. And let me tell you what I mean by that. The open space as our current cluster code sits, which we've only had 3 in Western Weaver, 3 cluster subdivisions approved under the new code. So a lot of the concerns that people have on the cluster subdivision code go back to old codes that created problems. The new code, I don't know, yet to be seen. We'll see how that turns out. Hopefully we can get some good parks and rec out of it in the open space. But we do know on 2 of those cluster subdivisions, we've already got farmers lined up to farm the open space, okay, and own the open space. Now, what if the farmer comes in and wants to develop that open space? Well, there's a conservation easement that the county owns that's placed on that open space land. And so you're going to have to convince not just the 2 out of 3 county commissioners to remove that conservation easement. You're also going to have to convince all of the neighboring landowners in the neighboring subdivision who got approved based on that open space to not come and protest at that public hearing when the county commission chooses to do that. Doesn't mean it's impossible. Still can happen. Get 2 out of 3 votes and you can remove the conservation easement. It's just not going to be easy. Okay, next. How can we possibly have enough water for all those homes and more? Yeah, that's a big problem. Sorry, that was ironic that I just needed that. The easy answer to this is you have to have water to get development. Okay, so if we can't prove that we have enough water for all that, why do we plan for all that? Well, right now we're not planning for all that. Right now it's just out there. It's rights that are already running with the land. And if you've got a piece of property and you want to develop it and you need water and you've got revenue and you know you could turn that revenue into more revenue if you develop your land, you're going to find water. Really great examples of this is the pipeline from the mouth of Provo Canyon, the Provo River pipeline that goes all the way up to Salt Lake County. Salt Lake in the 30s realized they didn't have enough water coming into the valley from the cottonwoods and the other tributaries that are coming down. And so they tapped the Provo River because the Provo River comes from the high Uintas. So all that water is coming from the snowpack up in the high Uintas, right? And then at some point in time, they said, wow, that's still not enough water because Utah Valley still has water rights and there's some farmers down there that need some of that water. And so let's go even higher. So they go even higher and they punch a hole through the mountain that ties this Duchesne River, the river that's in Duchesne County to the Provo River. They can lift the gate and they can route that river to Provo River, or they can go the other direction if there's a water shortage on the other drainage. I mean, that's incredible that men can do that, but they do. No, I'm not suggesting that any one farmer who's looking to do 50 lots is going to do that, nor is a developer. But you get enough people and you get enough pressure, we find water. We talked to Weber Basin Conservancy District, who owns the excess water that aren't tied up in water rights already. And they said the next project is the Bear River up in Cache County. Okay, just damming that up and storing as much of that water as we can, because the Bear River also is tapping the high Uintas and the snowpack that comes down that way. Just look at what Las Vegas has proposed. Hundreds of miles of pipeline. Look what St. George has proposed, hundreds of miles of pipeline to bring water into those communities. So how are we going to do this without proof of water? I don't know. Snake River has water. I hear folks in the Midwest have water. I mean, extremer things have happened, right? It would be pretty extreme to run a pipeline that far. There is someone who recently said, if you can run a pipeline across the nation for oil, why can't you do it for water? I don't know. Okay. I moved here because I wanted to be in the country. Yeah. So did the people who followed you. And so did the people who came before you, except for the legacy families. That's not a bad thing to say. That's not a bad statement. And I don't want anyone to feel like I'm being pejorative towards them for saying it, because I would too. You get your little slice of heaven. But 50 years ago, the slice of heaven was 20 acres and 30 acres and 50 acres. Today, it's 1.5 acres, 2 acres. Okay, and the people who are going to follow you, they're going to be just fine with 1/2 acre or 1/4 acre. Okay, that's going to be their slice of heaven. It's just one person moves in to get their slice of heaven, and then so does another person, and then all of a sudden you've got no heaven left. Okay. Leave us alone. The only landowner, and somebody can correct me if I'm wrong after the meeting, the only landowner I can think of this applying to is the farmer who does not want to develop. I mean, can you imagine having all that acreage, having no intention of ever flipping it for housing, and all of a sudden the county shows up with a map with a road going right through your property? I mean, that's not fun. Everyone else, if you're saying leave us alone, you're not getting it. And again, I don't mean to be mean about that. There's a ton of property rights that are out there right now that are going to be built. And if we leave you alone, they're going to be built. That's a sure thing. Look at every other community that surrounds us. Davis County is wall-to-wall houses now. Okay. I thought this one was interesting. This is actually a minority comment, but it is worth noting. Another community, rural community that I worked in the past, we were doing a similar project like this, and a farmer came up, I'm assuming it was a farmer, he was an old timer. He came up and he said, why do we need parks? Those kids have that much time, send them over to my house. I got plenty of things for them to do. It's a fact, and it's a proven fact, that you gotta take care of all aspects of your life, including your recreational needs, okay? It's not as important as food and water, but it is important. And if we build parks, more people will come. Well, I don't think that's true. I think people are gonna come because it's a great place to be. And once they're here, you're gonna need parks. I don't think it's the other way around, okay? Ironically, up in the Ogden Valley, we've got the same concern. If you allow what was it about? I think it was nightly rentals. If you allow all these nightly rentals, you're just gonna have more people buying up land to do nightly rentals. And I don't think that's true. I think what is true is that it's a cool place to be. That's why people are going there. That's why the market is reacting to that. Okay, why doesn't the plan call for townhomes when the newer generation seems to like them? This is a little different comment. And this is a good question. Why doesn't it call for townhomes? Our kids can't afford to live out here in West Weber. I mean, they can't even afford to buy an acre of land. So what happens when they can't buy an acre of land out where they want to live? Well, they're pushed somewhere else. And if they're pushed somewhere else, but all the other housing prices are going up, I don't know about you guys, but my house has tripled in the last 4 years. I can't afford the house that I live in if I have to buy it, if I had to buy it today, okay? Which means that I wouldn't be able to live in the cool neighborhood that I think I have. I'd have to go further down the hill to inner city Ogden. And the people who would otherwise be buying in inner city Ogden, where would they live? So our decisions that we make, and I'm not trying to say that everybody's got to come live out in Western Weber. That is not at all what I'm trying to say, but the decisions that we make for Western Weber do affect more than just Western Weber. Okay. Too many houses too fast. Right on. Period at the end of that sentence. That's accurate. When I was working over the hill in Morgan County, Mountain Green was one of the fastest growing communities. Now it's easy to be the fastest growing community when you've got 4 houses and you build 20, right? But nonetheless, we run our lives based on expectations, okay? And when we go outside and we see the big farmland, we expect to see farmland, right? We expect to see it tomorrow and the next year and the next year after that. But when you swallow all that up and put houses on there, all of a sudden just everything changes and our expectations are upended, okay? I think the primary thing that we do as planners is we're in the business of setting expectations and moving expectations and helping people set appropriate expectations, or I should say realistic expectations, okay? Don't ruin the current communities by encouraging the growth of new ones. Plan for us, not them. I love this statement. And it's true. One of the things that might be a little misunderstood, and I don't know what the full context or intent of the commenter was that making the plan is going to encourage the destruction of the community. That's not true. Not doing anything is going to encourage the destruction of the community. The developers are just going to do what they want to do, okay? Doing something will help put the parameters on what the developers can and can't do, which might actually help save some of the identity of the community. Now, I don't know if that's what they meant to say when they meant to say this. I think it's a great statement. And I think it's a great reminder that we live here, right? You guys live here. And that we got to keep that in mind because we're not just planning for developers, right? In fact, I don't think that's what we're planning for at all. I think what we're planning for is you guys. It just happens that developers are buying landowners' rights and then developing them. Scrap the plan. We all love it the way it is, and I'm sure that's what most others will feel as well. A round of applause, except for scrap the plan because of all the reasons I've already mentioned. Okay. I'm just trying to hit that point home. I want, when you guys leave this room, I don't want you to be upset or frustrated or anything like that. I just want you to be informed because a plan is going to roll out, and I want to bring you with us, and I want the plan to suit your needs, but also there's going to be things in it you're just not going to be comfortable with. Okay. No big box Walmarts, but Kent's would be nice. So somebody thinks a little bit of development, right? And that's great. Kent's is a local brand, right? Isn't it? In fact, I hear through the grapevine that Kent's might be looking for a piece of property out here, but Kent's won't ever build, not with the rooftops that exist today. Because Kent's, any supermarket, they've got just their standard market analysis. How many homes are within half a mile of this grocery store? How many homes are within 2 miles? How many homes are within 5 miles? How many homes are within 10 miles? And how many other grocery stores are inside of those radiuses or those circles? Okay. Right now, there's just not enough rooftops. You have to have rooftops to get services. But maybe that's okay, right? Maybe Kent's can wait a little bit. But if we don't think about where Kent's might be located, we're just going to put a tract of housing there. And when I say we, again, trying to communicate that it's not us doing it. Hopefully it's clear that we're on your team. It's developers who are doing it. We could set the parameters of where Kents can go and tell a developer that's not the place for housing. Find another property to buy, okay? Good, another question. It's a good question. Why do you want to take the last raw land in northern Utah and make it just another city? In fact, I don't think I have this comment in here, but I had 2 or 3 different comments from the surveys. I moved out here from Roy. You're just trying to make it look like Roy again. I'm not. I mean, I wish I had the ability to buy land and develop it, but I'm not doing that. We're not doing that. The planning division is not doing that. We're just being responsive to what developers are doing, okay? Another one said about the same thing about Syracuse. I would like to see planning that allows people to live their whole life without having to move completely out of their community. We need starter homes, large residences, and retirement residences. When we were reviewing this amongst us as staff, one of my other colleagues turned to me and said, "You weren't supposed to take the survey." I didn't write that, but I wish I did, because I think that's a good point. Thanks for taking a proactive approach to planning and not letting developers dictate how our community grows. So somebody gets it, and I love it. Thank you. I love this. No one can tell me what I could do with my own home. Well, within reason. Okay, we're going to clarify a few terms. Now, this is just to kind of help give you a heads up. There's not a lot in the rest of the presentation that goes over these terms, but these are terms that will probably come up over the rest of this process. Okay. Mixed use village. We do talk a little bit about that. In fact, your current plan talks about a neighborhood village or a mixed use village. What is it? It's that. We're not talking about a city core. We're not talking about a downtown area. We're just talking about some services, some commercial opportunities. Anytime you have a mixed use village, you got to have an anchor. You got to have that Kent's for people to go grocery shopping and then they can go get their haircut or vice versa. Multi-use pathway, what is that? That's all it is. It's a pathway off of the side of the road. It's where the kids can walk to get to school. I followed the bus on 4700 West. I followed it from 12th Street all the way up into Plain City and then back out into Warren again. I don't know if you've ever been stuck behind that bus, but it stops every 3rd or 4th home and lets 1 or 2 kids off. Yeah, it takes forever to get down that road. If you had some sidewalks, you had something off to the side of the road, the kids could walk just a little bit further, maybe 3 or 4 houses down to catch the bus in a more consolidated location. Let those bus routes be a little slower, let the gas be less guzzled, etc. Cluster development. It's just that. Move the houses closer together so you got open space. A lot of people don't like it because they want their elbow room. But I hope to communicate that in the 1 acre zone, your minimum requirement is only 10 feet from your property line. And if your neighbor's 10 feet from your property line, your elbow room is 20 feet. It's not a field, okay? So you've got control over the first 10 feet. Going back to this slide one more time. This is 16,000 dwelling units, and your elbow room ends at your property line. Okay, we're gonna bounce through these really quickly. And these are terrible slides. I'm sorry, I had to blow up really small pictures. That's an acre. That's 1 acre development. Sorry, that's not an acre in the square. That's 1 acre development, 1 acre per lot. That's 1 acre per lot. Go ahead, next one. That's 1 acre per lot. Next one, that's 1 acre per lot. That's 1 acre per lot. 1 acre per lot. 1 acre per lot. And 1 acre per lot. Same one, keep going. Keep going. That's 1 acre. So when you're saying, why are you letting all this development happening, or you're packing them all in, or whatever it is, that's what 1 acre development looks like. It doesn't look like some homes and then farmland, and then homes and then farmland, okay? Now 16,000, is that gonna happen in your lifetime? I don't know. I don't know. I mean, we know that The Wasatch Front is growing, it's supposed to double over the next 25, 30 years. And so maybe, I mean, farmland is easier to develop than retrofitting urban areas, okay? Just less expensive. Quick game, just in your minds. Is the left side or the right side more dense? Oh, don't go yet. Just look at it. Okay, now go. 2 units to the acre, that's twice as dense than it is on the other side. Okay, go to the next slide. Left or right, more dense. Just think about it. Okay, go. Yep, left. 2 units to the acre, twice as dense. Okay, next. Which one's more dense? Okay, Scott. Equal. Trees do a lot to hide the houses, don't they?
Oops.
Okay.
Boy, Saturdays all the time.
Oop. Let's make sure we're muted if you're online. It's just in your mind, which one's more dense? That's a hard one. This is half as dense. This is 2 acre development on this side. Okay. Just in your mind, which one is more dense? Okay, go ahead. Of course, they're all pushed together, but there's open space. Okay. And not everybody loves that, and I get it. This, for some people, would be far more attractive. Okay. Which one's more dense? I didn't count. The point that I'm trying to make, go back a couple of slides, is that when you're driving down the road, every 150 feet in the 1 acre zone is a house. Just imagine that in your mind, every 150 feet. If you don't know what 150 feet is, just go out and measure your frontage. If you imagine the future as every 150 feet is a home, I mean, you're going to be looking at something a little bit more like this, not at houses interspersed amongst farmland like you have now. Okay. Consensus, that's what we're trying to do here. And honestly, at the end of the day, it's going to be up to the county commission. I mean, that's why we elect elected officials to make decisions. But I'm pretty sure, and I don't want to speak for the county commissioners, but I'm pretty sure it'd be really nice for them to make an easy decision because everybody loves it. And I don't think everybody's going to love it until we all embrace the reality of it. Okay. Revisiting what we did in 2018, 2019 with you guys. And that's all 1 acre development. And honestly, I don't think 1 acre is going to be sustainable everywhere. You're still going to be paying out your noses and taxes if you've had one house every 150 feet. You got to think about diversifying that. You're also going to lose your community identity if you have one house every 150 feet. So just think about that. Okay. How do we want to do this? So for the folks online, open a new window or get out your phone, snap a photo of the QR code. If you're here and you're tech savvy, get out your phone, zoom in, snap a QR or snap a photo of the QR and open, or you don't even have to snap it. You just take your camera app out, you hover over it, and you'll see a little drop down. You'll be able to tap on that. If you don't want to do this with a phone, you don't have to. We've got folks who are going to be handing out paper copies. So, and that'll be these guys here. So if you'd rather do a paper copy, this is just a survey online, or in paper. If you want a paper copy, just raise your hand and keep it raised until you get your paper copy. Now, if the QR code doesn't work for you, just go to www.slido.com. So I don't want to stand right in everyone's way. Oh, just in case anyone's having a hard time with internet access with the current service you have, Wi-Fi is written right there. This is the one that I got. So let's see. Okay. So hit allow all. So once you get into the app, tap allow all because it's going to use cookies. Sorry about that. Okay. And then I don't know. Okay. So it's going to tell you that there are no active polls right now. It's because John on the other side has not launched the poll yet. We just want to get everyone ready. So really what you're looking for right now, if you're on your iPhone, is you're looking for a blank screen. Mine's black, yours might be white, but it'll say there are no active polls at the moment. Just keep that open. Perfect. Okay, anyone else want to do it on paper that doesn't have paper? Okay. All right, you know what? I think we need to have John share his on this one. John, are you there?
Yep, I can switch over anytime you're ready.
Okay, I'm gonna hit stop share. Okay, it's all you. I think.
You guys see that all right?
No, hang on. Let's see. Okay, now we can see it.
Just let me know when you're ready and I'll open the first question and then you can walk everyone through it.
Okay. Anybody in the room not ready yet? Okay, it looks like we're pretty well ready here. And John, if there's any way to just get right into your microphone. And John, as you put them up, I'll read them, so you don't have to worry about reading them.
Great.
But if you need anything, just let us know.
Okay, sounds great. Here we go.
Okay. All right, so, oh, that's terrible. Hey, John, when you share your screen, can you share the entire program screen, not what's on your laptop?
Yeah, let me try it. Is that any better?
No. If you close the participant window, that might, or minimize it, that might make it bigger. And actually, you know what? I'm realizing they probably don't need to see what's on the screen because they're just see what's on the screen in front of them. So, so folks in the room and folks online, I'm just going to read the question, but focus on what's either on the paper in front of you or on the screen in front of you. Did you take the previous online survey? When we say previous, we mean the one that was released a month and a half to 3 months ago, I can't remember, and closed a month and a half ago. So that's the question. And we're going to give you 5 more seconds to answer the question. 4, 3, 2, sorry, hang on, push pause. It's the question that's question number 1. So, did you take the previous online survey on westernweberfutures.org? Yes or no? Okay. Ready? Half, quarter, 0. I'm just finishing counting. Go ahead, John. 58%, that's great. Okay, next question. Which part of the Western Weber planning area do you reside in? West Weber, Taylor, Reese, Warren, West Warren, you went to Highlands. I don't live in Western Weber planning area. Yeah, and I apologize that Reese and West Warren is different. Just click what you identify with. You were born that way. It's all right. Okay, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. John? Okay, Taylor and West Weber, most populated areas, that makes sense. West Warren, Warren, a little bit of Reese, don't live here, okay? No one from the Uinta Highlands, but that makes sense because we didn't invite them specifically to this meeting. We're gonna go talk to them a little different. That is a very different can of worms. Okay, next question. How long have you lived in the Western Weaver planning area? Less than 2 years, 2 to 5 years, 5 to 10 years, 10 plus years, I don't live here. Okay, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Go ahead, John. Wow, 10 plus years. It's a good turnout. Okay, next question. Did you participate in the county's planning vision process back in 2018? So did you come here? Did you draw on the boards? Did you put the red or green stickers on the boards? Did you go to the commission meeting when it was presented? Okay, yes or no? Okay, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. John, go ahead. Oh, good. You know, the online survey respondents told us 60% said no. I think we got a different crowd that shows up to the meeting than the ones that don't show up. And sometimes that's not anybody's fault. Okay, next question. Assuming growth is inevitable, rate how well you think the 2018 Western Weaver draft planning vision addressed land use, with 1 being not well at all and 5 being very well. So you should see 5 stars. You could go 1 through 5. I think you have to choose 1 through 5. Don't put 0 on there, please, just for my pride. Okay, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. John? That's a good amount. Great. Again, 60% of the respondents on the online survey said they did not participate. Okay, next slide. Or sorry, next question. Please rank the land use recommendation in order of preference. So what we have on, as far as your choices go, are the primary recommendations that staff pulled out based on general consensus, very general, of that planning process. And we presented it to the county commission. And I'm not going to tell you it was right. I'm not going to tell you it was wrong. I'm asking you. So you're ranking them. John, how are we ranking these?
So if you're on your phone, you can hold down the item, you drag it up to the box that says drop here, and that'll put it in there. And you do that with all of them, and then you can move them around.
Yep, number 1's your highest. Yep, and then, yeah, so you're ranking them in the order of your preference. I'll give you a little bit more time on this one because there's a few of them. So just in case there's any questions about how to do it, tap it and then slide it up to the box at the top. And you just keep sliding them up in order of your preference. And if the answer is I don't like any of them, we actually have that accommodated for in the next couple of slides. Okay. So a few eyes down. Okay, 5, 4, 3. Okay, somebody said more time. I'll reset the clock. Raise a hands who needs more time. Okay. If you're online, sorry, I can't see your hand. Okay, John, go ahead. Okay, from the crowd. Ensure development does not outpace the extension of transportation, utility, water, sewer systems by focusing growth near existing infrastructure. That makes sense. Preserve farmland and open space through use of cluster and conservation subdivisions. Allow commercial land uses in small mixed-use villages as growth occurs. And then buffer between the heavy manufacturing areas and other land uses. Great. Okay, next question. Assuming growth is inevitable, oh, by the way, I'm just gonna, if there are responses that you would have rather have seen on that last slide or any of these slides, keep them in your mind, because the last 2 slides will ask you if there's anything we missed. Okay, and I want you to be able to enter those in. If you don't enter them in or you can't enter them in, put them on the piece of paper that you have, throw it in the box on the way out, or get online and shoot a comment over either by email or on the website, okay? Okay, assuming growth is inevitable, rate how well you think the 2018 Western Weaver Draft Planning Vision addressed transportation. Okay, and it's the same thing, you're just gonna slide your choices up. I'm just kidding, it's just stars. Thanks, I'm glad you guys are taking it. Thank you. Okay. Need more time? Okay, we're gonna go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, John? Hey, John, I can't see what the answers are. I just see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
1 was 17%, 2 was 19%, 3 was 36, 4 was 26, and 5 was 2.
Thanks. 2%. Okay, 3. That's a good strong answer. Okay, next question. Please rank the transportation recommendations in order of preference. Sorry, this is the one you're going to slide.
And Charlie, while people are answering this, since it takes a little longer, I think the issue might be on your end. I think you might have to go into full screen mode. Because I think we can see the full screen here, but if you're having an issue with size, it might be on your end.
Okay. That's what it is, I guess. Anyone need more time on this one? Okay. Oh, we have a few yeses. Don't know. Be nice to know if we have consensus on improving accesses across the river, but choosing where that's going to be, we don't know yet. Anybody need more time? Okay, still a little more time. Yeah, that's the question. Oh, no, not even further west, just as far west as it shows. Yeah. So the last one is a question about petitioning UDOT to move it to 8,300. Okay. We good? Okay, go ahead, John. Wow, that's going to be hard. It's a tie across the board. Everybody wins. Okay, let's go to the next slide. Oh, wait. Sorry. Can you go back? Scroll down. We can't see on the screen. Okay. So we got a few things that didn't do as well as others. Okay, move to the next. Okay, number 9, assuming growth is inevitable, rate how well you think the 2018 Western Weaver draft plan vision addressed parks, trails, and open space. 1 being least, 5 being you knocked it out of the park. Maybe 5 should be we mostly love it. Give me some wiggle room on that. Okay, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, ready? Okay, John. Not great. We did okay. Okay, next slide. Okay, please rank these park trails and open space recommendations in order of your preference. Okay, and as you're doing that, hopefully you can multitask and listen with your other ear. The Parks District is working with us to create a Parks Master Plan as well, Parks and Recreation Master Plan. So we do intend on that becoming part of the master plan or general plan when we're done. This one had a lot. But there were only 3 on this one, wasn't there? Okay, anybody need more time? Did I hear a yeah? Okay, John, I think we're ready. Okay. Okay, John, next slide. Promise, we're almost done. Think about the future of Western Weaver. What objectives are most important to you? Rank your top 3, and this is not going to be an easy answer. At least I hope it's not easy. As you're looking over these, you can see that some of these are at odds with each other. You can't have one and the other together, right? You can't say keep everything rural and protect property rights. They just don't work well together. I mean, you can, please do if you want to. It's just, it doesn't seem to work that way. Okay. Anybody need more time? A couple people need more time. Okay. John, go ahead. Two dichotomies are right at the top. Folks, this dichotomy is super understandable. I mean, why not want your cake and eat it too? This is why the 2003 general plan is what it is. In fact, Mark could probably give you a little more detail, but I think he's going to be more courteous than that and not give it to you. Back in 2003, the hard question was asked between those two, choose. And we didn't choose. We just said 1 acre development everywhere, but also don't develop. Okay. That's the hard part. Okay. So the next couple of questions are going to be open-ended questions. And I'll move to them in just a second, but I want to make a point, and it's a really important point. The resulting plan may not turn out anything like any of these objectives. Okay. The point in us asking the question is not to take a vote. Okay, it's to get an understanding. What's important to you? There are things that are just going to be what they are. Development is going to be what it is. Okay. But do we have a handle and can we get a handle on how to shape it, how to form it in order to preserve rural character? Okay, there are some things that we're actually developing right now, like street cross sections. People say, well, curb gutter and sidewalk, that feels like a suburban community. We're looking at low impact development possibilities of not having curb gutter and sidewalk. In fact, that's better for storm drain systems. The water can flow right off into the ditch. Okay, you just make sure the kids have somewhere to walk on the side. And we could do that. Okay, it doesn't have to be curb gutter and sidewalk everywhere. So those are different ideas. Yeah.
And Charlie, just so you're aware, there is one more ranking question before we get to the open-ended questions.
Okay, thanks, John. Thanks. Go ahead. Hold on to that comment because I want to address it directly. So right after we get through this survey, I want to hit on that one. So just for the folks online to hear, the concern that was brought up was we come in with these ideas of tell us what you want, but also what you want doesn't matter because it is going to be what it is. Yeah, it's hard to hear. I want to address that a little bit later. Okay, I think we got 3 more questions then. Okay, one more ranking question. Is this it, John? Number 12?
Yeah, and then there'll just be the 2 open-ended questions.
Okay. So rank your top 3 highest priority for recreational amenities. Everybody ready? 5 seconds. 2, 1. It's a long 5 seconds. Okay, John? Okay. Walking, biking, equestrian trails, natural open spaces, traditional parks with playgrounds, picnic areas, and sports fields. Okay. All right. So a couple open-ended questions. This next one, you're going to want to say a lot of things, and you're going to have a very little amount of time. Just distill it down to 2 or 3 bullet points. If you have more to say, write it down on the piece of paper, log on, give your comments that way, or shoot us an email. All the information is on the paper in front of you. Assuming growth is inevitable, what would you add or refine about the previous 2018 Western Weaver draft planning vision? Given your answer, there's no way for us to display what the answers are here just because there's, I don't know how many people here. And so those will be available online and they're anonymous. So say what you have to say. Don't use curse words if you can because the system will throw it out if you use curse words. Okay, going to give you another 20 seconds. Okay. Give you 5 more seconds to wrap it up. If you need to say, I sent a comment online, and then hit enter.
And Charlie, for those on the online meeting, we will be displaying the email address and website address on the slide in the presentation as it continues. So you'll have that information, how to submit a longer comment.
Oh, that's right. Thank you for bringing that up. So everyone who is online in the Zoom meeting, all that information is going to be displayed on the last slide. So take a screenshot or whatever you need to hold on to that information. It's not easy to balance one meeting online and one meeting in person. Hopefully we're doing okay at it. Okay. And then last question. What do we miss? Or what are we missing? It's not coming up for you? Is it coming up for everyone else? Okay. Okay. Take your time on this one. We're just going to leave that one open for the rest of the meeting. Meeting's pretty close to being done. But we want to have question and answer period. So you can feel free to continue to answer your question or enter your comment on that while we go through question and answer. John, we move to the next slide.
So you're gonna have to share your screen again, Charlie. So I'll stop.
That's us. Oh, that's not it. Our final slide. So if you're online, take a snapshot of that, or if you guys are in the meeting and you want to have it on your phone, take a snapshot. Okay, so I want to address that first question that came up. You say we have a voice in this, but then you say we don't have a voice. It's hard when we've got existing realities that we've got to face. It doesn't mean that the voices don't matter. In fact, if anyone has ever served on the Planning Commission or ever wants to serve on the Planning Commission, at some point, you're going to ask me or one of my colleagues this question: what's the point? If some of the things that I want to happen can or cannot happen because of the law or because of externalities, why should I even say anything? I mean, if the county commission is going to vote for something different than I recommend as a planning commissioner, why do I even want to be involved? And the answer is actually relatively simple, because your voice will persuade the outcome. It might not change it, but it will persuade the outcome. Okay, so it might be a question of what color of blue. You know, what color of blue does everybody like? Well, maybe everybody puts a vote in, and at the end of the day, the county commission has to make a decision on 1,000 shades of blue. But maybe a bunch of people like a certain hue. Okay, so there are shifts, there are boundaries, there are responses that are important, because they will help guide the planning commission and ultimately the county commission on making their decision. Now, Commissioner Jenkins, when we were talking about this, he warned me that if we go into it a certain way, we're gonna make people upset, because we're gonna say, tell us what you want. No, you can't have that. And that's not the intent here at all. We did revise it so it wasn't so blatant at the request of Commissioner Jenkins, which good request. And that's not what we're trying to say. It's just, there are things that we can't control, but there are things we can control, okay? And we can set boundaries on growth. We can't stop it, okay? Especially at the current rights that are out there. So it's not the best answer in the world, and it's probably not gonna make you super comfortable, but hopefully as you walk away, there's a little bit of hope that the future isn't bleak. It's not bleak. You can make a really great place that does pay tribute to its rural roots, even though it might have 30-acre lots on it. Okay, Question here?
Okay, so the one thing that I feel like has not been addressed here is how are you going to protect some of the rest of the livestock? I have been pushed out recently with my livestock. I don't want to see this become like farmers and where their commissioner has said, the only voices I want to see here are the metal statues on the roundabout in front of legacy. Foresters no longer can use the legacy center. We're going to build you a little tiny one somewhere sometime.
Yeah.
How are you, what is your plan to protect those of our livestock from neighborhoods meeting in and saying, it's, you know what? We like this number out here. We want our livestock to be very much. How are you? What's your plan?
Great question. So the question for those online is, what is the county going to do to help people with livestock? And I'm just going to go a little bit further and say, I'm going to say the farmers, because the folks who are out there in the middle of the night who are getting their crop or planting their crop or doing whatever it is at 4 o'clock in the morning with the bright lights on the tractor and it's noisy and their diesel engines. I mean, and yeah, they're feeding the livestock, or they're tilling the ground, or they're harvesting. So what are we going to do to protect those folks? Right now, today, we've got an ordinance that says if you're going to move into a home in an agricultural community, you have to accept the risks that go along with that. There's going to be smells, there are going to be sights, there are going to be things that you have to deal with. That's not going to change the folks who move in, though, right? Folks who move in from the city on their 6,000 square foot lots, I'm going to move out to the 1 acre, the half acre, the third acres, thinking, look at all this wide open space, except for the stink and the flies and the farm implements. I sat through one meeting where a lady, this is a completely different community, she came to the county commission and complained that sandhill cranes keep crashing into her backyard. Well, it happens to be that the name of her subdivision is Rollins Ranch, right? That's not so much of a ranch when you put houses and people on it. Not an easy answer. Some farmers will tell you that the day of the farmer might be past. I don't think that's true, but I think that there's hints of that. Right now, we know that in order for a farmer to compete, right, they need to have a ton of acreage, because you've got the Walmarts of farming out there, with the farm industry being held by 4 or 5 major entities who are capitalizing on the economy of scale, right? They got a ton of area, they got enormous equipment, and they can whip stuff out and sell it so cheap that it's just going to keep on undercutting the farmer. And that's why some people say farming in Weber County is dead, even though there are still some farmers doing it, okay? And I don't think it's dead. Yeah. And the answer to that question, I mean, some people's. Yeah.
The unique community in the nation.
Yeah.
That says, no, we are going to protect them.
Yeah. So let me give you an answer. The person who I hope said, leave us alone, right? I hope that person is a large farmer who doesn't want to see anything change on his land. He or she has no intention of handing it down to his kids. When he or she dies, he's going to leave it in a farm. It's going to be a conservation farm, and no one will ever change it, right? The only way for that to happen is to give somebody else the responsibility to manage that open conservation easement, right? And so if you've got a lot of acreage and you don't want your community to change, the question I have for you is, are you willing to put it into a conservation easement that will ensure that it never changes? And if you are, maybe your neighbor will be, and maybe their neighbor will be. I think most people are thinking about the kids. They're thinking about the retirement, and they're thinking about having to supplement their farm income because the prices are being undercut by economies of scale of big agriculture. And so a lot of folks are thinking about, well, maybe we got to go north where there's more acreage. And that gets right to the root of your question. How do we stay in the community? I don't have a good answer. Let's go here and then one back here.
Just real quick, Mendon, Utah, Cache Valley, they put a moratorium on building permits because they want to keep that rural atmosphere. Is there any way that that can be done? And watching your plan and looking it over, there's nothing there that I can see accommodates the equine world.
Right.
The farm, yes, not the equine, which is a huge industry in the state.
Yeah. Yeah, so the question and comment, Mendon, Utah put a moratorium on building permits, no more development happening there, and nothing in the plan mentioned protections for equine, and that's a big industry here. All true statements. So the question there really lies in, if the county commission were to create a moratorium, essentially what the county commission would have to do. Moratorium in the state of Utah isn't actually moratorium. People use that word differently. A moratorium can only be for 6 months, and then it has to be lifted under state law. What Mendon essentially did, calling it a moratorium, is they said, we're going to take away all those land rights. Can't develop. I mean, I don't think so. That's a hard pill to swallow, I think. When you're thinking about land rights, when you're thinking about who you voted for, when you're thinking about political perspectives. I mean, Weaver County is about as Republican as it comes. And I don't mean to make this about politics, but it is, because at the end of the day, decision makers who are elected are going to have to make a decision, right? And it's not going to be to take away the land rights. It could happen, but I think it won't, given the current situation that we're in. I mean, so that's the unfortunate answer. And I say unfortunate, maybe it's good for you, Anna, but the unfortunate answer is, if you don't want it to develop, Commissioner Jenkins mentioned it, you got to buy it. We do have people, for example, in the Ogden Valley who have purchased 2 or 3 lots next door because they don't want to see homes on those 2 or 3 lots. But you got to go in with capital to do that. And you got to be willing to sacrifice that capital to ensure, for them, it's about view shed. For you guys, it's about open space and open areas. Now, let's be clear about one option that you probably are already aware of. State of Utah has agricultural protection areas. If you're not already in an agricultural protection area, I recommend you go to the state and you get signed up for one. An agricultural protection area gives the farmer the right, essentially, the right from government changes. So if Weaver County comes in and changes the rules and says you can no longer do swine operations on your property, sorry, goodbye. You're in an agricultural protection area. Your rights of what you've started are essentially preserved under ag. You've got some limitations there. It expires every certain amount of years, but I think it automatically renews if action isn't taken. So look that up, because what that does is it ensures that we can't make rules and apply it to you when you don't want them to be applied to you, okay? And it gives you more control than just essentially selling off your rights to a third-party conservation company who won't let you give it to your kids or your posterity or successors and heirs, okay? Another option, and all these options can come out in this general plan. In fact, I recommend that they do. Another option is something that the Ogden Valley does, is they've got a land trust. Now, Ogden Valley is in kind of a different kind of situation, because in 1998, they were downzoned. They were taken from 1 acre to 3 acre minimum zoning across the valley floor. Now, people who had an acre, they were grandfathered in. All the new developments, all the new lots have to be 3 acre minimums. That was not an easy decision, and there was only one reason why that was able to get through the conservative politics of Weaver County, and that's because they were pooping in their drinking water. They've got septic systems up there, and that was just affecting the water quality, okay? And even today, we've got new evidence that suggests they're still doing it on the 3 acre spectrum. The Utah Geological Survey tells us it needs to be 6 acres minimum. Hard pill to swallow. You know what we're doing? We're not looking at 6 acre minimums. We're looking at building a sewer system, because that is something that promotes property rights. Okay, so that's part of the decision-making that you need to consider. We're between a rock and a hard spot. How do we make everyone happy? So, question in the back?
The kids cannot afford to buy the grounds from the alcohol. So the concept here would be create a body policy. Create a reservation district, where a body policy, do the county commission, and look for it, all things in ordinance, have that one for part of one commission, and administer there, and then we've got great ex-legislators, Scott and Kay, go down, say that, $3 or $4 million here, $3 or $4 million there, chunk change, let's go.
Commissioner Jacobs, get out your wallet.
And for like 30,000 an acre, like 20,000, 10,000 acres. That's the problem. The only part of guys, the kids can't afford a farm at 50,000 acres. So, my buyers will, that's the rate of price for that. They either write it down on the county, and say, hey, I would like the county to school that, because if you're going to promise, we all love the rule. That's why we, but you can't agree on our enterprise. Because that's the reason, that's the inheritance. And if they want to be, they got a right to, you can get 1,000 acres, and how would you do that? Fly out of the land and just do that. Okay, so it is, what the county is so idea. Write it down on the homepage. Otherwise, I'm just no guy, I'm not doing like, I'm using not doing a lot of different songs. And I will challenge our great commissioners here, to explore that and challenge them to write on this long. If that's something else, it's easy. There's a way to do it. When I heard people like Charlie, I did hear some stuff say, no, we're losing farmland, and I think we got. You know, John Kennedy and a number of speech, all of them, you know, some people think and way up, so now that we got it.
They say, why not? Yep. I love it. Thank you. No, that's perfect. So I'm going to try and give the Reader's Digest of the Reader's Digest version of that, just for the folks online. The comment was the county should be looking at exploring a mechanism, legislation, or a district of some sort that essentially allows for revenue to help supplement a child or someone who's interested in buying farmland from their dad or someone else, but supplement that financial investment so it's not an arm and a leg to do, because the land prices are astronomical. I think it's a great idea. And well, it's voluntary, right? Sure. I agree. And there are a couple of tools. In fact, I was about to say this about the Ogden Valley, and I don't mean to talk about the Ogden Valley. It's kind of like the kid that goes to school and says, my old school is better. It's just, we've answered a lot of these questions in the Ogden Valley. And one of them is, we can create a land trust. Now, this is a nonprofit. You don't even need a body politic to do this. You create a land trust that raises revenue. to go and buy the land rights, right? So the answer that Commissioner Jenkins mentioned, the answer that I mentioned is how do we keep it rural? Well, we buy all the land rights. Easier said than done. Everyone pull out their wallet. The Ogden Valley Land Trust, they hold galas, they hold banquets, they hold dinners, they do all kinds of stuff to collect money. And they've preserved, I don't know how many hundreds of acres in the Ogden Valley. And they're a third party. And so there's nothing that an elected body or the planning commission or anybody can do or say to change the fact that they own conservation easements on some of these properties. So I know that's a little bit different than what you were mentioning, because what you were mentioning was to help supplement the purchase price. But it's a method. I like the idea, and I think it's something worth looking into, and I think challenge Mark and myself to look carefully into it. Appreciate it. Again, for the folks online, that was furthering the advocation of looking to the body politic to create a mechanism in which we can preserve farmland for in perpetuity. Hang on just one second right here. I want to come back to you. The other thing that we can do, we talk about land trust, we talk about purchase of development rights. What that means is you go to the farmer, you hand him a bucket of money and you say, don't ever develop the land, we're gonna put a conservation easement on it because we purchased all the development rights from you. You don't say it like that, you let them volunteer for it. But you go and say, I wanna buy your development rights, and they say, okay, it costs this much. And then you buy them and you retire all those development rights, but the farmer gets to keep the land and it gets to keep farming. That's complicated. It's a very complicated process. It's something that we're vetting in the Ogden Valley right now. That's assuming that you are going to keep farming. That's assuming that your kids are going to keep farming. Part of the challenge of economies of scale with farming is 100 years ago, you had all the acreage in the family, right? And then he gave it to his kids, and then he gave it to his kids, and then he gave it to his kids. And here we are 100 years later, where a bunch of kids own 10 acres, 5 acres, maybe 20 if you're lucky. It's not enough to farm on. And so the other issue is thinking through this through a market demand perspective. The cost is increasing, especially out in Western Weber for raw land, because of scarcity, because of 1 acre development. Okay, that by itself is pushing the costs up and making it so it's hard to move forward. I'm not telling you that's a bad thing, just telling you that's a market force. Okay, so looking at realities. Okay, I want to go to one question online and then I want to come back to you. So if you're online and you have a question, actually, you know what? Can I turn to Lisa or John to call someone out?
Yeah, we have Logan with Right Development Group that wanted to, I think you had a question or a comment. And Logan, if you want to unmute yourself, let's see if you're still on.
Yes, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, can you guys hear him?
Thank you. We are just interested in helping fulfill the housing need in the county. We have a piece of property that we've been working with, and we will probably reach out to the planners here and talk about that particular location near the West Point border. But just excited to be part of the process. And I don't think we have any other comments more specific than that, but thank you.
Okay, and there are a couple of quick questions, Charlie. There was one early on. Will the location of the lift stations be shared?
That again. So there's an individual online, West Point Development, is that what I heard?
Right Development Group.
Looking to do development and is going to reach out to us as the planners, but sounds like they're interested in hearing what the community has to say as well. Okay. Keep your ear out there as we post things for public comment period. You'll be probably hearing something about that pretty soon. Let's take the question back here from the gentleman in the t-shirt.
Because the farmer who has to walk through, you don't want to farm. Yeah, you can sell it to another person, but then there, that land is still one, all community is on the farm. Who can afford $60,000-$70,000 a year to continue to farm, and then purchase that for $20,000-$30,000 an acre and grow his farm.
There we go. No, that's great. That is I think it's a good point. I think it's worth saying. So just to repeat for the folks online, gentleman has 5 acres, neighbor has 10 acres. If he's got 5 acres, he might have the ability to put 5 development rights or 5 lots on that 5 acres. And his neighbor could put 10. But if he sells his 5 to his neighbor could then put 15 on his 10 acres, thereby building smaller lots and then preserving 5 acres of open space. Now, 5 acres isn't enough to farm on, but in the future, it might make for a great community garden or a great park for people who move in. Regardless, it'll be yours, and it's still land and it's still valuable. So what you have just spelled out is a transferable development right program. It's the program we're trying to work out in the Ogden Valley. And I think it's great. Good on you for thinking through that. That's actually something that the current cluster subdivision code does, is it moves all the density into a spot, keeps at least 50% open, and then that 50% that is open can then be owned by a farmer. And that farmer will pick up the property at undevelopable real estate rates, not at developable real estate rates. So the price tag of that farmland goes down, right? And stays down in perpetuity. When he sells it, he won't be able to sell it as development land because the county will have a conservation easement on it. The current cluster code's broken for a few reasons. We either need to update it or get rid of it, but it is something that component of the cluster code, I think, can work. One of the issues with the cluster code is that you only required to have 5 acres. Contiguous acreage for farming needs to be more than 5 acres, but okay. I saw another hand. Let's go right here. Yeah. Good question. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so for our online participants, what kind of protections exist for folks who currently live in the community against development? Perhaps a developer comes in and plans a road through somebody else's property. Or there are other issues that come online when you get development right next door. It's a great question. In fact, it leads down to the very root of why planning and zoning even exists. Back in the early 1900s, the courts were hearing all these complaints as nuisance complaints, right? Guy goes to develop his land, or guy puts something on the property that's a nuisance. You can sue him in court because zoning didn't exist at the time. And that's one of the reasons why the Supreme Court said that's a legitimate policing power. It's because it's for the protection of the health, safety, and welfare of the people, right? Because one of the fundamental property rights is you have a right to quiet and peaceful enjoyment of your property. And so the use of somebody else's property that affects your right to quiet and peaceful enjoyment is a nuisance. That's by definition a thing. So the challenge is what is our perceived right, right? And what is our actual right? So right to quiet and peaceful enjoyment means you probably shouldn't be routing your drainage into my backyard, right? You developer should not be routing your drainage into my backyard. There are laws to protect you from that. And sometimes it still happens because we can't catch everything. And then we have to go out there and try and fix it. People sue each other, at least trying to address the issue on the front end. Hopefully keeps people out of court, but sometimes it doesn't happen. So one aspect of your question though is, well, what if they put in a road and it just stimulates the need for someone to plan a road through my property? The easy answer, I'll give you an easy answer and a hard answer. The easy answer is under the vast majority of situations, that road won't go through your property until you choose to develop. So if you look at the map and you see all the roads going through all the properties and you see one going through your field, that's your option in most cases, okay? And I see a chuckle over here. It is. Yeah. Right. Right. Yeah. So something to follow up a little bit on that. When the county looks to plan roads, well, okay, so I've been working on a master roads plan that will hopefully go along with this. It'll be brought forward when we come up with our drafts and maps. But where we look at the grid system, we look at the grid network that exists and how do we advance what's already been started, basically. But I'm going to pick on Brent if he's still in the room. Brent Edwards on the Planning Commission, his house is right at the very end of a main road, right? And if that main road is gonna be continued, it's gonna go right through his home, right? Our intention is not to draw lines through people's homes. In fact, I think we had one Planning Commission meeting where I had my iPad out and I was drawing lines on a map, and it was a thick bristle brush, so it was probably a 1,000-foot wide road, and it happened to go through somebody's house. And I hear, and I apologize if it was you, I hear that on Facebook it blew up into a big problem. And I apologize. There was zero intention of drawing a line through someone's home, because that's the last thing elected officials or us want to do. How do we do it when it comes to property? In dire circumstances, when there is a need, an absolute need, sometimes the option isn't presented to the landowner. The county, I think, I've worked for the county since 2014. I think we've done it, and maybe somebody else can correct me on this, twice. Use of eminent domain, and that's a hard thing to talk about. Most people don't even want to use the word in a group like this, because that's when the pitchforks and torches come out. It's not fun to talk about. There was one up in the Uinta Highlands where so our requirement under the law when it comes to purchasing property for roads or public uses is to enter a willing buyer, willing seller negotiation, where we're looking at fair market prices. So we are required to come to you and say, we want to buy this area here. You're going to do your math. We're going to do our math. We're going to have our appraisers looking at it. You can challenge our appraisers. You can say, I think it's worth this much. We're going to say, we think it's worth this much. We're going to come together and hopefully come to some consensus. But it oftentimes is just real estate values, right? It's not what your value is on your property, on your slice of heaven. How do you put a price tag on a slice of heaven, right? And that's where the challenge comes in. Sometimes it's hard. And it's never easy to have those negotiations when the outcome of you saying no is the county or jurisdiction city. Let's just say it's a different city because, I don't want it to be us. Says, we need to. So sorry you said no, but now we're in litigation and we're going to use eminent domain. One of the key things that a plan will do is it will help us understand where growth is going to go, how fast it's going to get there, and when and where we need the roads. And that has a couple of benefits. It has a benefit for you as landowners to set your expectations on what can and cannot happen. Now, in some cases, that's going to be cha-ching for you. Like, oh, they want to put a road there? That's great, because that's a lot of frontage that opens up on my property that my kids can benefit from, or my retirement can benefit from. Other times, you're going to look at it and say, that's devastating. When a developer looks at those maps, or when the county looks at those maps, it helps the developer of the county understand, okay, where can we be looking? Where should we be looking? And ultimately, at the end of the day, it allows us to invest in infrastructure as development comes. Now, I'm gonna throw out a scenario, and I'm gonna try and not make it very specific, even though some of you may know it's very specific. There is a development that may or may not be coming in at the very end of a very narrow dead-end road. How can we allow a development to go in of so many, how many, I don't know, let's just pretend like it's 1,000 units. How can we allow a development to go in at the end of a 15-foot wide road that has that many units on it and one access? Well, that's a hard question that the county has had to grapple with, right? Because number one, nobody wants it to be developed because it disturbs the rural atmosphere. It changes the fabric of your community. Number two, if I put my foot down as a landowner along that street and I say, nope, you can't have any of my frontage, maybe it'll stop that development from happening. Maybe for a time, but when the county goes in and entitles a project like that from a planning perspective, and just so you guys know, we have different roles and responsibilities, and that project was approved with different people in different roles at the time. I'm looking at long range in our planning division. We've got current planners that look at current applications. Projects shouldn't go at the very end of a dead end road. They shouldn't, at least not a dead end road that is 15 feet wide. It shouldn't have happened. It did happen. That's unfortunate, but it shouldn't have. And it has triggered new rules to go into effect. Okay, we're working with the county commissioners. The county commissioners right now, and I don't want to obligate them to a final decision on this yet, but what they have said so far is no more than 14 homes on a dead end road. Now, ironically, it's already in the code. That other project that went in was a special type of project. So that code under which that special type of project was adopted has been repealed. It's gone. And now we're looking at dead end roads saying, okay, if there's already 14 homes there, the answer to the landowners who live along it, who want to use their property rights and develop, is find another connection. Pool your resources, work with your neighbors, find a way to connect a road back to the street so you're not on a dead end. Okay, because that's good planning. That leads to good outcomes. That creates good emergency management, good fire egress, all kinds of good stuff. Okay, you put these lines on a map because you can then guide what direction those roads go. It doesn't, at the end of the day, stop people from coming to you and saying, oops, we put 300 units at the end of this road and now we got to go through your property. Okay, but today, the county is in a better situation to say no to that developer. Those rights, they're already there. But today we made some changes because we learned our lesson. So I'm not going to tell you we don't make mistakes because we make plenty of them. And if you look closely, you probably see a few more than we're willing to admit. But no easy answer. But hopefully just coming together and talking and working through some of the challenges helps set up expectations. Question in the back?
Yeah, at what point can the state tell us to back it up against the highway? Because it seems like a lot of the time we do need to have it put down on that.
Yes. That's it. So here's the process for UDOT and Legacy Highway. And just to make sure everybody heard, that's a 2-lane road. There's no on ramps or off ramps. Okay, there has been no environmental study done on that project like it's been done through Davis County, which is going to be a freeway. Okay, at some point it dumps off onto, I think it's about 5400 West, crosses the river, crosses the railroad tracks, crosses 12th Street, and goes north about 6200 West or so. That is their selected alignment. Under the law, under state law, the county has the obligation, anytime anyone who is along that alignment who wants to develop, you want to pull a building permit, you want to pull a subdivision, we have an obligation to contact UDOT and give them 90 days to negotiate a purchase from you. Now, up until recently, the state had not purchased any property along that alignment. That's how serious they are. Now, I don't mean that's how serious they are about building the road. That they start planning it this way because at some point in time, it's very likely to be a road. And they chose that alignment because that was the easiest pathway to go. And there was a big committee, there was a committee that went along with that of folks who looked at a lot of different options. You got a lot of challenges out in that area because you got wetlands and you got floodplains and whatnot. And so it wasn't an easy answer to come up with that alignment. Again, I'm defending UDOT just because I've heard the whole story from beginning to end. And I think if you asked me a couple of years ago, I would have said, gosh, why'd they do it this way? But now I get it. So we're obligated to notify them at that point they can come and do a willing buyer, willing seller negotiation. They are not entertaining any kind of eminent domain at this time. You want to sell it to them? Great. You don't? Great. They'll figure something out. They bought a couple of properties along that alignment so far, but they have not gone gung-ho. As far as financing goes, they have funded the environmental study of it. So they are looking at that route and they have funded the study of that route. I believe that's in their phase 1 or 2 funding cycle. But as far as building it, that's in their phase 4, and phase 4 means we don't know where the money's coming from or if we'll have it. So that's how sure of a thing that is. So we actually have a GIS line on our GIS. Are you familiar with our GIS app online? So get in there, turn on the planning layers with all the zoning, turn off all the zoning and just turn on, I think we call it the West Weaver corridor. Maybe we call it the West Davis corridor. It's named something I don't think it should be named. So it's probably West Davis corridor. Turn that on, you'll see it and where it's aligned. If you're interested in selling to UDOT, getting a little bit of money out of it, give them a call. That's actually how they purchased the couple of properties that they have picked up along that alignment. Just somebody noticed that the line went through their property and they sold. UDOT has this horrible machine. It's got turbines on the front of it. It looks like a snowplow, and it just eats land and houses and spits out asphalt. That's the unfortunate thing about UDOT. So the question for the folks online is, actually, I don't think I repeated the first question. So the first question was, how sure of a thing is the West Weaver corridor? And you heard my answer to that. The second question is, what if you don't want to see it there? What are your options? I mean, I could defend UDOT in their choice of where to put it, but I have no affiliation or tie to them, and so I'm not going to defend them and how they're going to come and negotiate. Okay, and we're getting close to 9 o'clock, and I think we're after 9, and we told the school we'd be done by 9. So let's answer 2 more questions online. Everything else, please send me an email or send us an email through the website. I'm happy to answer all the questions that you have. John or Lisa?
Yeah, Charlie, we just have 2 quick questions about sewer that came in online. The first is, will the location of the lift stations being built be shared? Did you hear that?
Lisa, John, are you there?
Yeah, did you hear that, Charlie?
Can you hear us, Charlie?
Looks like folks online, I am so sorry. It looks like we're having some audio problems. We can't hear anything that's happening online, nor are we getting video. Do us a favor, and I really apologize for not being able to get to the questions. Please send your question by form of email. You can mail us. You can get on the website and just submit a comment on the website, www.westernweaverfutures.org. Okay, with that, I think we're going to close this meeting. Again, apologize to the folks online who had questions.